We're combining all the best old school wisdom with all the top new school methods to bring you the optimal way to coach and play the great game of baseball. This is the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass with Coach Bo.
Welcome. This is Coach Bo. Good to have you guys here, my great listeners, you great coaches, you great players that want to get better. Really excited to get into this episode today. Episode 35 here is going to be a follow-up, the part 2 to the better batting practice discussion that we started in episode 34. Speaking of episode 34, I do apologize. That's the first episode. The audio got a little bit fuzzy. I contacted my editor that works with me, and we tried different things. I even contacted a second editor, my boy Donald, who helps me with the intro outro, and none of us could get it cleaned up. It had something to do with the connection between the microphone and the computer. I do apologize, but moving forward, we're going to clean and crisp as best we can here for you so you get a good audio product and, more importantly, great content. So like I said, the first part of episode 35 here is going to be a follow-up. It's going to be the applicable parts, the parts that you can take out, the pieces that you can take out to the field, the specific things you can do to get your batting practice better. There's definitely some things that we don't cover because my big goal is to try to keep these episodes in a range where you can consume them all at one time and it's not just overload with a bunch of stuff we go on for hours and hours talking about sort of the same subjects. Those podcasts, in my opinion, are really good for professional coaches that are full-time baseball coaches and need that little tiny advantage because everybody else at the major league level, the professional level, the high college level, they already know a lot of the baseball stuff and they need those little tiny nuggets that can boost them up a little bit, where when you're a high school coach and definitely a youth coach, which is the vast majority of coaches in baseball are parents and youth coaches, you are the foundation of the baseball community, and there's so many more of you than there are of those coaches at the upper levels. And so keep in mind, as I create and build this podcast and share it with you and get it out there to you great listeners, I'm not trying to cover all 50 parts of a great batting practice. What I'm really trying to do is highlight for you, with all my experience and all my experience in the trenches and just being involved on both sides of playing and coaching baseball for so many years, I'm trying to give you the stuff that's really going to move the needle and really going to help. The problem, the challenge I see right now is for coaches, and I've discussed this, and I'm only going to hit it real quick here, is coaches, parents, youth coaches, that you just don't have the time or maybe the experience to really go, is that true? Is that not true? How much does that help my team? Is that something I need to put that in first? Do I need to put this in first? I only got a 2-hour practice window. I only meet once or twice a week. What do we cover? What's important? And that's really what this show is designed for. Now, if you're a professional coach listening to this, I guarantee you're getting some good stuff out of this. In fact, a lot of this stuff is applicable. So we're going to get into the batting practice right here to start. And then the second part of this episode is going to be a discussion about holding and slowing down the running game from a defense and pitcher's perspective. So your team's on defense, you got your pitcher on the mound, and especially at the high school and youth level, which again is 90% of all baseball, if not way more than that. It's maybe 95, 98% of all of the baseball teams and all of the players fit into that high school and below category. So that's really where we're working on. That's really where we're trying to get the information to you guys that are doing such a wonderful job with the young players, the youth. The running game is something that at the lower levels doesn't necessarily come into play when you see major league games because the arms have caught up. The gloves, the transition, the transfer, I should say, from glove to hand, from the ball getting caught in the glove to the transfer to the hand, and then the throws, the releases, the movement of the feet, the pivoting is so much faster when you get to professional and college and even that elite high school level, where runners can't just be willy-nilly and like running bases like, hey, I got a runner at third and it's ball 4 to the batter and then he just goes to first and just keeps on going to second or things like that. Or first and third offense at the youth level is almost an automatic steal for the runner at first, where you do that in the major league levels, it's probably going to cost you more runs. If you do that at the college level, it's probably going to cost you more runs on offense to do that because the throws, like I said, the transfers, everything is so much better and more advanced. So at the youth level, and we're going to talk talk about this in part 2. At the youth level, it's important to understand that the kids begin running and perfect running much faster than they do catch, a transfer, and a throw, and then a catch and a tag. All right, so they can run faster. Now, a good throw, a good transfer will beat any runner anytime at any equal distance. But the challenge is getting that throw on target, catching it, getting rid of it, the tag. There's a lot of moving parts. Where all the base runner has to do is simply turn and run, or in some cases, he's already kind of turned his body and he just sprints. And that's something he was probably doing when he was 3 years old, 4 years old. He was running and doing sprints. So by the time he's 8, he's been doing that for 5 years. Catching a baseball, throwing a baseball, that may be something that he's only been doing a few years, and something that definitely takes a lot longer to perfect. With that said, let's get into part 1, which is part 2 of our better batting practice discussion. I'm going to give you a blueprint for how to conduct a batting practice in the right way with the right ratios of pitches and whatnot. So let's get into it, guys. Sometimes it does help to have, these examples to understand the point that is just kind of so embedded in our coaching psyche. So for example, like this type of batting practice, this batting practice that we've done is like, it would be like a football team practicing against air at every practice, or probably even a better kind of analogy would be like offensive line in football, practicing all their blocking against a sled. And those of you familiar with football practice, you all know what a sled is. It'd be like practicing against a sled or a sled dummy every day, rather than actually blocking a defensive lineman that moves unpredictably and in a variety of ways. It would be like a quarterback, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, these quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, all these quarterbacks, and Aaron Rodgers throwing always to a receiver that's standing still. That's kind of what batting practice is really kind of looks like, and the difficulty of our batting practice compared to the game. It'd be like throwing to a receiver all practice long that's standing still and with no defense. And again, you're like, no, of course that's not the case. Of course that's not. It's highly competitive during practice. Those receivers are moving, they're making cuts. Of course they're not just standing there with no defense over and over and over and over again. So I can go on and on about examples outside of baseball, illustrating how this is just incredibly unbelievable, that the fact that this old school mentality of batting practice, I don't think anybody could really think about it for more than like 10 seconds of serious thought and not see the huge flaw in just using batting practice fastballs and nothing else, or very little else. So let's get to what I recommend as far as what I really think is an effective kind of blueprint for taking on batting practice. Here we go. I believe that any coach that can throw a fastball, or that any coach that can even throw a batting practice fastball, can also throw a changeup off that and a semi-decent breaking ball. If you can throw a fastball of any velocity that can get of any distance, then I think you can also throw a changeup. And I also think even when it comes to like short toss, I mean, you can definitely add some spin to it, and you should add spin to it, and you should randomize it. The hitter should not know what's coming. So here we go. Here are my bullet points, my 4 bullet points for making batting practice better. Here we go. 80-20 baseball coaches. This is how you make your batting practice so much better. Man, you can tell I'm fired up about this. It's just shocking that this has gone on for so long. I mean, I guess being in baseball for 33 years and just seeing this day in and day out and getting the answers I get and not seeing the change overall and not seeing the entire game like run away from this as fast as possible after thinking about it for more than like 10 seconds is just shocking. Here we go. Bullet point 1, first step. Hitter should always know whether there are 2 strikes or less than 2 strikes. So hitters should always know whether there are less than 2 strikes or if there are 2 strikes. They should always know. And if you read the hitting approach, my hitting plan article on the homepage of the website, you'll see the hitting plan. Man, that one I'm just super, super, super excited about, because I think it really simplifies something that's just been really not broken down to its essential, just spare elements. And that's the hitting approach, the hitting plan. So read that. And really you're going to see on there, you're going to see plan A, plan B. Well, you can call it plan 1, plan 2. You can call it whatever you want. But let's say plan A is less than 2 strikes. Plan B is with 2 strikes. And if you read it, you understand what I'm talking about, what the hitter is looking for in those particular situations, in those different counts, less than 2 strikes and with 2 strikes. Or you can also just say, hey, the hitter, you should say to the hitter, hey, there's less than 2 strikes here. This round of BP is with less than 2 strikes. 2 rounds of less than 2 strikes and 1 round with 2 strikes. Or if you're doing 4 rounds of batting practice, then it's 2 of each. And when I say less than 2 strikes, I'm talking about plan A from my hitting approach or my hitting plan article. And then if it's with 2 strikes, you can't say more than 2 strikes, right? You got more, you'd be sitting on the bench. And that's what happens after all these hitters are seeing these batting practice fastballs. And then they get in the game and it's like, whoa, that don't look like what coach was throwing to me. And then they're sitting on the bench, right, with 3 strikes. So you have plan A or plan B. The hitter in batting practice should always know, you don't need to tell them the count necessarily, like how many balls there are, because I don't think that's really important. I think what's important is knowing how many strikes there are. And I say that only because if it's 1 and 2 or it's 3 and 2, if it's 3 and 2 or if it's 1 and 2, are you going to look at that pitch on the outside corner any differently? Hey, strike 3 is strike 3, whether it doesn't matter. And when you have a strikeout on the scorecard, on the scorebook, it's not going to say, oh, well, he had 3 balls. That was a 3-ball strikeout, or that was a 1-ball strikeout. It's not. Yeah, you struck out. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. All right, bullet point 2. Batting practice should always include a random assortment of pitches. Hitters should never be told what's coming. Not even from the first pitch. Just mix it up, vary it up, have some fun with it as a coach. A good ratio is 50% fastballs, 25% changeup, 25% breaking ball. That's a simple to follow ratio. So if you're doing a round of batting practice with 10 pitches, you can do some simple math there and kind of, you may want to go like 4 fastballs and 3 and 3, like 4-3-3. That's not a bad approach, or 5-3-2, depending on maybe the upcoming opponent. But a good ratio is 50 half fastballs, quarter changeup, quarter breaking balls. Randomize it. Doesn't have to be a perfect ratio as a coach. You don't have to sit out there and keep track you don't have to tally up how many pitches exactly you've thrown, but you have a kind of an idea. So if you've thrown 4 fastballs in a row, then you should probably vary it up, throw in a change, a breaking ball, and those can kind of go back and forth for a few. Now, tip number 4 for a great batting practice, the fastball should be as close to your typical game speeds as possible. Unless you're going to face, in those rare circumstances, you're going to face a soft tossing pitcher, a really slow pitcher. You know that pitcher is slated to pitch against you in the next game. So if you need to get closer to home plate, if you need to get that velocity, that perceived velocity up, invest in an L screen, invest in a portable L screen. Something that if you go look up, most of you know what an L screen is. If you don't, look it up. They sell these portable L screens that you can stand behind so you can get close. And as a lot of you coaches know, the closer you get, and it just makes sense, right? The closer you get, then, that 50-mile-an-hour fastball from 30 feet has now got the feel of a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. And I don't know exactly how the translation on that is, but it's definitely going to make a difference if you get closer. And I truly believe, even as you get closer, you can definitely throw breaking balls and you can throw some changeups, although that's going to be a little more difficult to get some of that velocity separation, but it's definitely doable. Last one, for the more advanced levels, hitters should be pitched the way the opposition has been attacking them, how the opposition has been coming after them. Coaches should try to find the holes and exploit those holes. And they should try to exploit them because that's what the opposition is going to do. I mean, especially at college and professional, but even in high school, most quality high school programs have scouting reports. And now with video, they got some pretty good scouting reports. And it's important to find those holes and let the hitter work on those holes in their swing before the other team exploits and just beats those holes up until your team is shut out. So find holes. If you know they got a long swing, maybe you work them in. If they're not working the other way, maybe you pound the outside. If they have a propensity to chase the fastball up, work up a little. If they have a tendency to take a pitch and just put one down the middle, if they want to see, and you're teaching them things like in the game, like why would you just take a pitch just to take it? Unless, as you get into like my article that you read, the hitting plan article, you'll see on there, there is one plan take. It's called plan take. It's the third plan. There are going to be times where you do actually, as a hitter and as a coach, you want your hitters, and for hitters, they want to take a pitch, but that's not going to happen super often. And you'll see in the certain situations that's appropriate and that works well to take a pitch. All right, make batting practice competitive as a coach, right? Don't just go out trying to let them hit home runs. You're trying to make it competitive. So go through these real quick. First, a hitter should always know if there's less than 2 strikes or if there's 2 strikes before each pitch, or I think it would be more efficient just to have each round designated as a 2-strike round or a less than 2-strike round, a plan A round or a plan B round. 2, it should always include a random assortment of pitches. Random. Hitters should not know what's coming. A good ratio is 50% fastball, 25% changeup, 25% breaking ball. Now, if you're an upcoming opposing pitcher and you know him and you know you're going to face a certain pitcher and he's throwing 50% breaking balls, well, you can adjust that ratio. Or if he throws a little slower, maybe you do throw a little slower in batting practice. Or if he throws a little bit more with a run, 2-seam, maybe you mix in more of a run or a 2-seam. Or if he elevates his fastball, 4-seam elevated, then maybe you mix in a few more of those. That's for the more advanced. All right, most youth coaches don't have a scouting report that's good enough or reliable enough to know, exactly what to do with. And thus, I think it's just a good ratio. 50% fastball, 25% changeup, 25% breaking ball. 3, the fastball should be as close to your typical game speed as possible. So if you need to get closer, use an L screen, coaches. And 4, advanced hitters, coaches, you should try to go after their holes. You're not trying to make them feel good, all right? I mean, we live in this try to make everybody feel good society, and it just
backfires. You want to give them support. You want to give them confidence. You want to give them praise, but you don't want to make practice. You don't want to coddle them and make it easy just to make it easy. I'm not saying you got to get a pitching machine out and crank it up to 125 miles an hour from 46 feet away, but let's not go out of our way to make it super simple and easy and non-competitive and where they just get all these cream puffs thrown up their way, these big old beach balls. All right, coaches? Hey, you can see I'm very passionate about this. But I think it's a huge opportunity here for you 80-20 coaches to find a huge competitive advantage. I think if you do this, I know if you do this with your batting practice, you randomize it. Your hitters work their two plans, less than 2 strikes and with 2 strikes. Keep that fastball speed up. All right, so their timing is consistent to what they're going to see in the game. Then I truly believe your hitters are going to get better as the season progresses, some faster than others. But by the end, by the middle, and if you work with a team for multiple years, you're going to see huge growth. And at the end of the day, they'll get better as fast as they get better. You need to make the environment so they can get better. And you need to create an environment to give them the opportunity to excel at their best. And this is the way to do it. Stop, baseball world, stop. Stop with the fastball, batting practice fastball, meatball down the middle, make the hitter feel good. No, you want them to feel good? Have success during the games. All right, have success during the games. Give them praise. Be transparent with your players. Explain to them the benefit of making batting practice more challenging, especially if they're coming from years of hitting off the cookie cutter, the easy cream puff fastball. All right. Hey, coach, why are you mad? My old coaches didn't do that. Hey, be transparent. Explain to them the why and make it challenging. Make it game-like. Man, that's how you handle batting practice. And you can do this with a tee. Why is it that when we set up a tee for years, and I know coaches aren't doing this, all of you aren't doing this, but many coaches will set the tee up and they don't move the tee into challenging spot. They don't put it an inch off the inside part of the plate and make the hitter stand where he normally stands and try to get inside and drive that pitch. They don't put it 2 inches off the outside part of the plate and say, hey, there's 2 strikes. And that pitch is probably going to be a strike, especially at the youth levels. All right, you got to do something with that pitch. And I don't want you just to try to tip it. I want you to drive it as best you can. So put it out there. Putting up multiple tees and then having them just hit it different, calling out which one, a high or a low. Or should I say outside or inside? And you got to set it up strategically so you don't mess up the swing on that. But you get my point. You can always vary things. How about when you're soft tossing and maybe you don't soft toss? Maybe when you do what you call your soft toss, you throw it overhand because that's how the pitchers throw. And 2, maybe you vary the speed of the throws. Maybe some of your throws, maybe some of your pitches are fast. Maybe some have a little break. Maybe some are a little slower. Maybe you take a little off. See if you can get them out in front. And this is actually fun to do, especially when you're really close. All right, sometimes just slowing up the arm can really get them out in front. Now that doesn't work further back because hitters can pick it up. They have time to react. But up close, you'll get them out in that front foot, get them to kind of realize that, hey, I can't just sit here and guess dead red. I got to be ready for the fastball. But man, hey, there's a good chance he's not going to throw a fastball. All right, coaches, take this, get out there, use this. There's a huge competitive advantage. Make your batting practice better by making it more like the game and stop coddling these players, these hitters. You know what's going to bring up their self-esteem? When their OPS is 1,000, all right, and they're crushing balls, that's what's going to bring true confidence. Confidence is by action and having success. These players know that that's a batting practice fastball, and they are not going home and throwing a big party after a great batting practice. They're going to go home and be fired up after going 4 for 4 in a game. No kid is fired up. Most kids aren't fired up when they graduate 8th grade. There's a lot of people fired up after high school and after college graduations. Hope this is something that you do something with. I know it works. I know it absolutely is going to make your team better. Go out, use it. 80-20 baseball coaches.
Go make your batting practice better. And feel free, I encourage you to send an email, Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com. And also, once the website is back and fully rebuilt and better than ever, once it's live again, then you can go right on there and contact me through the website, or you can do it just without the middleman involved and just email me, Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com, and share with me or ask me your questions about batting practice. A lot of you, most of you have really good ideas, or you have some type of solution for something that you're thinking thinking of, or you saw something, or you're having a problem or a struggle with something, reach out. Ask me, share your thoughts. If you got a great strategy that you're thinking of that you want to just run by me, reach out, email me, and we'll go from there. You can send it over on Twitter. I don't do Twitter as much as a lot of the baseball community, but I check in at least every other day. I try to post things when I really get something that I feel is a game changer, a needle mover, the big things in the baseball community that can really help, and I'll share that. And I check in, so if you want to DM me, it's 80208020_baseball. You can reach out to me, follow me, and I'm not somebody who's pumping out stuff twice, 3 times a day, and there's a reason for that. I don't want to dilute the value of the messages, the tweets, and things that I am sending out. So check that out. Now, let's get into part 2 of this episode. I know part 2 of the batting practice discussion was the first part of this, so it's a little bit backwards. Probably should have done part 2 as part 2, but I didn't want the confusion, so we did part 2 of batting practice as part 1 of episode 35. In any case, you guys are smart. I love having you guys here, and I want to start. Speaking of which, Dr. Cosimo, now he's emailed me and he's reached out to me, had some really good feedback, and so I wanted to give him a shout out. He left a great review on Apple Podcasts, and we don't know each other personally, but he's reached out. We've had some dialogue. He's emailed me with some questions. He's doing a wonderful job, and I want to give you a shout out. Doc, you're doing a great job with the team, it sounds like, the improvements, and I really appreciate you listening and understanding, and I think you can see the value that you're getting out of this podcast, and you can tell I'm not just throwing this together willy-nilly. This has been years, 35 years of experience, but years in the planning and process, and I do not like to just throw out episodes without adding some real good value to you and helping you guys out, and it's great to get feedback. So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Cosimo. Maybe I'm not saying that right. In fact, I pronounce my last name, Asherbrander, wrong sometimes. So it is what it is, but hey, you know who you are. I'm giving you a shout out, and thank you for the feedback. I know you, in your last email, not to get too much into specifics when people email me, but I know your team, the same, like Team A, you played them earlier in the year, didn't go so well, lost by quite a few runs, and you played them recently, and you closed that gap down to a run or two. I think you said maybe within a couple runs, so you really are seeing improvements. And not only that, I hope that all of you guys are seeing, and most importantly, are seeing an improvement with the culture, the environment. It's fun, but there's discipline, and that to me is the foundational, and I believe wholeheartedly, without a doubt, I'm not sure, I'm very open-minded. I believe in the Zen mind, kind of the beginner's mind. You know, when you get older, one of the things that really happens, I'm almost 40. I'll be 40 here within about 6 months. And when you get to this age, and a lot of you listening to this are 40, maybe older, maybe you're a younger player. Take my word for this. The older you get, the more you learn, but the more you learn that you don't know very much. And so I try to come into things with the beginner's mind, but I'll tell you one thing I am absolutely certain about, and I very rarely say this because certainty is something that it's just really hard in life to really be certain about a lot of things. And I think our community, our society comes across as being definitive and giving definitive answers on things where there's still a lot of questions. But I do believe that winning on the scoreboard can go hand in hand with winning as a team within your team culture and creating a team culture and a quality, fun team environment. I do not believe they're mutually exclusive. I do not believe that you got to be a tyrant, a dictator, a yeller to win more. And I don't believe you need to be a people pleaser, a yes man coach, a yes woman to get your team to win more. I believe you can have a solid team rule policy, a solid tiered consequence policy. I think you can have discipline, and I think you can also keep it fun. I think you can have kids getting complimented all the time and being positive. I don't think you need to correct everything. I think that coaches can be the best version of a human being with their players, keep the culture fun, they can have discipline, and they will win on the scoreboard more often than they would have with doing it another way or doing it through the other methods that you see many in the baseball community, many coaches kind of go to because maybe that's what their coach did or that's what they think they have to do. But you can win on the scoreboard. You can improve on the scoreboard at the same time, and you will improve at the same time as you do with your team culture and team environment. So let's get into holding base runners, holding the running game, slowing down the running game. I think of it like that. Let's say slow down the running game because it gives you, coach, the player. I think from a coaching perspective, sometimes we think we got to be perfect. We got to shut the running game down. Go watch Pudge Rodriguez. Go watch highlights of Pudge Rodriguez, and then go watch highlights of those pitchers like Cole Hamels, those guys who have had fantastic pickoff moves. Go find a video with a guy with a great pickoff move and an amazing catcher like Pudge, and then go look at the statistics and see how many stolen bases they gave up. Sure, way better than the average, way better than most. Did they hold the running game? But they did not, and never has a pitcher or a catcher stop the running game. They slow it down. You're trying to slow it down as much as you can. So I think when you're looking at it, it's important to see it through the paradigm of we are trying to slow the running game down as much as we can without affecting the other parts of the game. Now, before I get into slowing the actual running game with pickoffs and things like that, the number one way, it's 1A and 1B. 1A, number one way to slow down the running game. Get your pitchers better at throwing strikes, at getting the hitters out. Not walking hitters, throwing strikes, getting them to hit the ball weakly. Get your pitchers better in the bullpens. Get your pitchers better with their stuff. Get them better as throwers, and you will have to deal with way fewer base runners, or definitely fewer base runners, because if the runner's not on base, right, they can't advance. So get your pitchers better at getting the hitters out. So instead of saying, well, we got to work on pickoff moves for 30 minutes or first and third defense for 45 minutes or 20 minutes because the team coming up, they do this, or the teams in our league are taking advantage of that. I don't think you should start allocating a lot of time away from your pitchers and your defense and your catchers. But I do think at the end of the day, it comes down to getting the hitters out. That's the main needle mover. Get the hitters out and they can't advance. So don't sacrifice bullpen time, throwing time. Get your pitchers better at throwing and your catchers better at receiving and things like that, which go hand in hand with bullpens because your catchers should be working on blocking balls, framing pitches, and working behind the plate to get the hitter out. And also with those pitches coming in, they can work on the blocks because pitchers are in the bullpens going to bounce pitches. So it kind of goes hand in hand. We want to slow the running game down first and foremost by getting better in the bullpens with our pitchers, having our pitchers throw live simulated games or intra-squad scrimmages, getting our pitchers better at pitching and getting your catchers better at framing, working around the strike zone, getting more strikes to get the hitter out. All right, step 1B, 1 Bravo, improve your defense versus the hitter. Not necessarily your defense versus the running game. Not necessarily working on rundowns and first and third defense, which definitely should be covered and work on to get better as a team, but improve your defense so you can get the hitter out before he gets on base or before he gets the first, second, or third and thus becomes a base runner. So get your defense better. Get them better at fielding ground balls. Get them better at catching fly balls, line drives. Get them better at making the throw to first. Definitely at the youth level and at the high school level. Take away the drag bunt. Take away the opportunity for those hitters that are good at drag bunting so they can get on base and then wreak havoc. Get your defense better. Get your pitchers better at getting the hitters out. Not necessarily holding the running game with their move. The first thing you should really work on is reducing the amount of runners, the root problem. One thing you're going to see, and you've seen if you've listened to the previous 34 episodes, you've read my articles, you've watched my videos, I subscribe only to solving root problems. And if I do talk about solving a symptom, sometimes that's a quick fix to kind of show the players or a coach a way of doing it, more maybe to change the paradigm. But at the end of the day, it's all about solving the root issue. So when you see like pitching mechanics, there's a lot of pitching coaches that work on arm placement or this in their head. I'm telling you, if you don't start at the feet, if you don't start with the legs and the feet and the balance at the feet, that's why Doug Latta, who's a well-known hitting coach, talks about balance 50-50 as being the biggest needle mover. So we could go on with this. It's so important to solve root problems rather than the symptoms and things that come down the chain, whether that's the kinetic chain or the chain of the game, the events that happen in a game. So let's solve the root problem first. Let's get the hitters out more often than we are right now. Let's improve that part of our game. Now, my main recommendation, once base runners get on base, once the base runner for the opposition, the other team is on base, my number one recommendation is getting your pitchers to practice and use and apply the power slide step. Now, I don't know if that word or that term or that terminology is used anywhere else, but that's what I call it, a power slide step. It is not a traditional slide step where the pitcher comes set and simply, and go look up YouTube if you're not. Most of you are familiar with what a slide step looks like. If you're not, go check it out. There's probably 1,000 videos on YouTube that talk about the slide step, in sense where the pitcher comes set and he essentially doesn't lift his leg up. He doesn't do a leg lift. He doesn't do a leg kick. I call it a leg lift. Some coaches call it a leg kick kick, or I just call it a leg lift or a knee lift. They don't do the knee lift, the leg lift. They simply just step straight towards the catcher and make the pitch, trying to be fast with their delivery, trying to not have any wasted any extra movement more than just stepping and throwing, because it's really hard to throw without a step. So they do a real quick, they kind of stride a straight step out to the catcher, and they make the throw. I'm not a proponent of the slide step. I am a proponent of the power slide step, because I definitely am not a proponent of lifting up the leg really high and taking our time with our delivery. Pitchers must find that balance between creating a delivery that optimizes or best optimizes their pitch, their strike percentage, or what I like to refer to as accuracy percentage. In other words, how often are they hitting their target, the glove, the catcher's glove. A pitcher's delivery with a slide step starts to sacrifice. I've seen this over the years. I think the numbers would back it up. It starts to sacrifice the accuracy of the pitch. It also jeopardizes a little bit of the arm health, in my opinion, because it gets the lower half out in front of the arm. It doesn't quite give the arm the time it needs to get through its arm action, its arm path, and coming up and making an efficient throw. The arm's got to go through some steps before it throws the ball after it comes out of the glove, after the ball-glove separation. So I believe in the power slide step. On my website, I had a power slide step video. It's going to be back up there once the website is live again. That is what I would do. I have a great video on there. And in fact, if you go on Vimeo and search, or even on YouTube, I may have posted on YouTube. I use Vimeo because I like the quality of the video better, from just getting you a better quality of video, and the player, the interface is much better in my opinion. Go on Vimeo and look up 80-20 baseball or Coach Bo, and I'm pretty sure I got it on there also. You're going to see exactly how I explain holding the running game at first base for pitchers, left-handed and right-handed. So it talks about that. I show the power slide step. In fact, I actually have a separate video discussing the power slide step. I'm a huge fan of getting the power slide step perfected. This is something that needs to be practiced in bullpens and in scrimmages. And you'll see in the video, I used to coach pitchers to use varying leg lifts depending on the situation, the runners. No, not anymore. When a runner's on base, whether that's first base, second base, or third base, or every base, or first and third, or first and second, or second and third, if there's a runner on base, I would have my pitchers use as a default setting the power slide step, where they're lifting up their leg, they're lifting up their knee just a little bit, about 6 to 8 inches, to give them enough space to push their front hip out, kind of load up their back hip, load up their back leg a little bit. It just happens really fast. So they lift up quick, they push their front hip out to gain some momentum. It buys their arm a little time to get out of the glove and separate, but it's fast. So it's not all the way up. It's not a 3/4 leg lift, but it's not a slide step. It's about 6 to 8 inches. Every player is going to be a little different depending on their height, but I'm telling you, that to me is the best way to balance the quality of the stuff that the pitcher has, the quality of their command, their accuracy, their breaking ball, their changeup, just the overall quality of everything. It's not necessarily going to add to their velocity much, but that's okay. It's definitely not going to hurt their velocity. It may uptick a little bit, but it's going to be about the same whether you slide step or lift 6 to 8 inches with a power slide step. But what happens is you're giving your catcher, you're giving your team, your defense time to get that runner out on the back end a little bit more so, right? So you're not going all the way up. I think also it has a couple other things that come into play that help the pitcher. One, and you'll see it in the video, the power slide step video, it forces a pitcher to use the same timing, the same delivery timing, the same delivery tempo for every pitch out of the stretch. And I'm telling you, this is not something I've heard of in the baseball community discussed at all. I'm not saying it isn't being discussed or implemented. I have not seen it. I've not seen it used. I don't think I've ever seen a pitcher that uses the exact same stretch delivery, leg lift height throughout the game. Typically they have a high leg lift sometimes, a short leg lift, a 3/4, a half leg lift. It varies throughout the game. I've never seen a pitcher that uses the exact same power slide step delivery. And I'm telling you, it's a huge competitive advantage. It's great to also balance the arm health, give the pitcher's arm a little more time. And I'm a big fan of this power slide step after years and years and years and years of practicing, coaching it. And I used to coach varying slide step or varying timing and leg lifts. And so I thought about it. I broke this down for years. One of the advantages of my position is I'm not in the trenches right now. I'm not out there over the last year and a half, 2 years. I haven't been in the trenches. I have gone out and implemented my systems with teams, and they've been very successful with those, but I'm not out there on a day-to-day basis. The huge advantage of this is that I'm able to look around. I'm able to put things together. I'm able to brainstorm. Taking 35 years of being out in the trenches, professionally, college, literally going to games, just
being immersed in baseball my whole life and being out in the trenches as a coach for 17 years, I have an idea of what works. I got a very clean idea of what works, what doesn't work, but also how it plays out. So I can sit there and say, well, this doesn't work, or this should work, or what's the goal here? And I can sit here and spend the time to give it to you guys. I don't have to go right now to work with a specific team every day or twice a week. I don't have to talk to parents. I don't have to fundraise. I don't have to build a program. I don't have to run tryouts. There's so many things to being a coach, especially as you get older. And I don't have to do that. All I have to do is sit there and go, what are the best practices, and put together the best practices that coaches can use in the baseball community. Maybe I hear an idea from a well-known coach or somebody who's not well-known that's just got a fantastic idea. And I go, you know what? That is the creme de la creme. That's the cream of the crop when it comes to teaching that particular subject, that topic, or that strategy, or whatever it is. Maybe I listen to Jocko Willink and I go, yeah, he's got the discipline dialed in. He's running teams. He runs teams really well. Well, he's a Navy SEAL guy. I wouldn't necessarily be able to immerse myself in his books and his podcasts, all this other great wisdom that's out there if I was in the trenches. So that's been a blessing. So I'm trying to get that to you. The power slide step. Pitchers should use a power slide step. Lefties, righties, no matter what, that's their default. So they have their windup is one of the same motion, the same timing, same delivery, same tempo. So they have their windup, and then they have a power slide step. So they only have 2 deliveries. And I'm telling you, this is going to help pitchers throw more strikes, control. It's going to get their release point more consistent, their hand placement on the ball more consistent, their power, their momentum, everything's going to be in sync better. So the power slide step. Now, catchers, you're the second part of this. Once the runner is on first base, catchers, once the runner's, say, on second, they got a double. Catchers need to practice their throw downs. They need to practice throwing down to second base, to first base, to third base. And here's the best way, in my opinion, to get extra reps in. How many of you guys have your catchers, when they're going through their throwing routine at the beginning of practice, or whenever you do your throwing program, whenever you do your throwing routine, how many of you have your catchers catch, say, every other throw or every third throw from a catcher's stance? So they're playing catch with their teammate. They're not in a bullpen. They're just out maybe in left field or right field down the line, and they're playing catch. How many of you have your catcher catch the ball from their partner in a catcher stance and come up and fire a throw back to them? Okay, now make sure that partner is not right there. Make sure that partner is out a little ways. I wouldn't do it right away. I would wait till there's a little space between the 2 partners, the 2 throwing partners, because you don't want your catcher coming up and just firing one if he's not quite ready to throw it that hard, but also if he's too close. It's just not a cool thing to do. So when they get out a little bit, depending on your level, for high school and above, and even junior high, I like to get to that, like once they get to about the 90-foot mark, that 90-foot mark is pretty easy to measure off because you have the bases that tell you. Then that's when I start having my catchers get down. Every other throw, they're coming up and firing, they're throwing it. You can even have them catch the ball, turn a little bit, like say 45-degree angle, and make a throw as if it's in the direction of first base, and turn a little bit their shoulders and their stance. So once they catch the ball, they can keep the ball in their glove and then make the throw. Here's something that really happens with catchers a lot when they're doing throwing drills. They start with the ball in their hand and they put it in their glove, and then they take it out and make a throw. That's not what's going to happen in the game. In fact, they should never do any defensive drill. Should always start by having the ball in the glove. Almost always where it's going to be, unless you're Ozzie Smith or one of these stud middle infielder major leaguers. The ball is going to go into the glove first, and you got to take it out of the glove. Where it's a fly ball, line drive, ground ball, or throw, it's going to the glove first and then out. And I see these drills go, and I see the players start with the ball in his hand, and yeah, he puts it in his glove, but he's got a good grip on it. He's ready. It's like, that's not game-like. That's not realistic. That's not authentic, and you're not getting your player better, because sometimes that transfer, that transition is so important, not just to getting it done quick, but also getting a good hand placement and the timing of it. So your catcher starts with the ball in their glove, and they can turn left a little bit to their right at a 45-degree angle and mimic making those throws to their teammate, to their partner. Remember, this isn't a drill. This is just part of their throwing program. The best thing to do is have them catch it as the ball's coming in. They're working on their footwork as the ball's coming in. They're catching it and they're throwing it back to their partner super fast. It also speeds up the throwing program because they're not sitting there catching it, staring around, talking, BSing. They're throwing the ball right back real quick. This doesn't work that great if both teammates are catchers. And so I think it works best if, say, one of them is a catcher and maybe you split up your catchers and have them throw with a middle infielder and outfielder, or somebody who maybe doesn't necessarily just catch. Have them play catch with their catcher's glove. I don't think you need to have them gear up, but that's a great one. Here's another one. Work on their footwork during bullpens. So when catchers are catching bullpens, work on their footwork. They're trying to work on getting their feet moving and also the transfer of the ball to their hand and up to a throwing position. I would not recommend catchers throw it back really hard or hum it back to the pitcher who's on the bullpen mound or whatnot. I would recommend them not throw it, but but there's no reason they can't on every other pitch while they're working also on their blocking. But why not the pitches that are strikes or balls? What about especially on breaking balls and changeups, which are a little bit more challenging for catchers, especially youth catchers and high school catchers, to make good throws on down to the bases? Why not have them, say on every curveball, come up and get to a throwing position where they turn their shoulders and they're ready to throw that ball to second base? And so they're not actually making the throw, but they're going all the way to the point where they're loaded up, ready to throw. So they work on the transfer, they work on catching the ball, receiving it, and getting it up to a good throwing position fast. This is the stuff that adds up to quality reps, game-like reps. So you get your catcher better at the defensive part. So these last two things we've talked about, pitchers, power slide step. This is once the runner gets on base. Again, keep the runners off base, get your pitchers better at throwing strikes, get your catchers better at receiving and framing strikes, and that's going to limit the amount of runners that are going to be. That's going to reduce the amount of runners that are on base. So if you're trying to slow down the running game, the first thing is keep them off the bases. The second thing is get your pitchers to do a power slide step. Catchers, work on receiving and releasing, receiving, transfer, release, quick. You got to get a lot of reps. The problem is catching is one position. So it's difficult to do a catching drill without really isolating out other parts of your defense as easily. You can do it. One thing you can do once you get to the field is you can have two catchers, maybe in each batter's box, and one of them could be working on throws to second and third, and the other one could be working on throws to first or first and second, and one could be working on throws to third. However you want to shake it out. You could have three catchers going. You could have three catchers. The thing is, you do not want to set your catchers up offline too much. So maybe you have one catcher right behind home plate, and the other two catchers, say you have three catchers, one is in the first base batter's box, maybe on the back line, so there's a little space so catchers aren't getting hit by a kind of an errant pitch. But here's where it's going to happen. You can have people throwing pitches a little closer, just more accurately. They don't need to be way back, so you're not hitting the catchers that are next to each other. Then you have the other catcher in the third base, maybe the back of the third base, the back line of the third base batter's box, the right-handed hitter's batter box. Sorry, not the third base batter's box, but the right-handed hitter's batter's box. Maybe he's on the back line, or maybe he's just outside of that. So there's a little buffer between him and the catcher that's set up behind home plate, and then the catcher that's set up in the left-handed hitter's batter's box on the back side. So you have them spaced out by 6 feet apart, 7 feet apart, good social distancing. And then you have three of them going at a time. The guy obviously on the right, say the guy in the left-handed hitter's batter's box, that catcher is throwing the ball to first base. He's catching it from a pitcher, from a coach, from an infielder. It doesn't really, somebody who's maybe an outfielder comes in and is just throwing. I prefer coaches do this as best as possible because it allocates more opportunities for the kids, the players to play defense. But there's a high rep drill, and then you rotate them. Say they do 5 throws to that base, and then you rotate them. And maybe you finish up with one catcher behind home plate, and you're throwing a pitch, and as you're throwing the pitch, you yell out 1, 2, or 3, and that's the base they got to throw to, because sometimes you have multiple runners, and it's not always, I'm going to get the lead runner. Sometimes you're getting the backside runner. Now, you can do high reps with that. Say they go, boom, they throw it, they hop out, or they hop back down and do 2 reps. I would move through that drill fast because you only got one guy going at a time, but it also makes them process where the runner's at and things are where the throw needs to go without already kind of getting into that auto mode. Again, you want to avoid any drill that's just automatic. You want to add things that make them think quickly, that react. You don't want just autopilot. Avoid autopilot at all costs when it comes to drills, because that's not how games are played, and that's not how championships are won. Man, I'm getting excited about this, so I'm going long today, but hey, you're getting a lot of extra. I think this is good stuff that can really, really help. So I get excited about talking about this, but I'm trying not to be long-winded with the same points. I'm trying to share some really good, actionable, applicable things that you can take out to the field and use. Now, for your infielders to get better at slowing the running game down, the infielders got to make quick tags, especially at second base, a quality tag, a good tag. You see major leaguers that are really good at this, second baseman, shortstops that are really good with their tags. And I believe it's something they practice. Obviously, genetically, they got some athleticism, but at that aside, I do think they practice their tags. So why not have your infielders, your outfielders work on or your whole team work on tags as part of their throwing program? They're already warming up. They're already getting their arms. They should already be warmed up before they do the throwing program, but they're already working on their throwing as part of a throwing routine, a throwing practice, or maybe they're throwing the ball around the bases, working on that. Why not add tags to it? The thing is you want with the tags is quick. You want the ball to be caught and down all the way to the ground fast. You want them to just really, it's got to be quick, down to the ground. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole swipe tag or straight down tag or tagging them on the hand or tagging them on the shoulder or the head. That's going to play out, and each coach is going to have their preference. My thing is, how quick can you catch and get the tag down? Ideally, where the runner is going to be coming through so they can't work around you. And I think a good tag that has some adjustability is always good, because sometimes these runners, especially these runners these days, are getting better at working around tags and doing some things. So I don't think you should just get complacent with one like swipe tag default setting. So why not work on the speed of the tag, getting that down? Not necessarily with base runners, because then you start slowing. Then you got base runners that need to run in, and you got balls getting, thrown, and you might hit some of your guys. Not that you're worried about that. Maybe you do something with runners, but at the end of the day, just working on the speed of the tag, that's really big, I think, for defensive guys when it comes to slowing the running game down. Well, if you think about it, that's exactly why a lot of coaches prefer a first baseman that's left-handed, because they have an easier tag when it comes to picking off runners. I don't always agree with just using a first baseman that's left-handed, because I know their arm, it's a little tougher for lefties to play third base and shortstop and second. You definitely don't see it in the major league level. What I do is I think you look at the guy who's the best first baseman, regardless of his arm, if he's right or left-handed, and you put him there. But a lefty is definitely going to be quicker with the tags. Over the years, I coached a fantastic left-handed first baseman with his tag, and he's actually playing professional baseball as we speak for the Colorado Rockies, and he's a pitcher. But man, he was a left-hander. He could swipe that tag so fast. So he would catch the ball about the same time a lot of other first basemen at his level would, but he would get more outs out of it. I think he got like 5 outs out of it, probably more so than, which is a ton of outs when you think about pickoffs. And the main idea of picking off, and this is something that's kind of deviate from that story because it doesn't have a great punchline. It's not that entertaining, but he was fast with his tag. But holding the running game with the pickoffs, coaches and pitchers need to realize it's not always about getting the pickoff. You want to have a good move. You want to be quick. You're trying to get a pickoff, but at the end of the day, your main objective is to slow that runner down, to slow his first step down, to get him thinking defensively. And pitchers, when you got the ball in your hand, you got to think, I got the ball in my hand. I'm in charge. I dictate to that runner when he can go, when he can't go. I got the ball. I'm on offense. He's not on offense. I'm on offense. I'm the pitcher. I got the ball. I'm in control here. And so that's a great mentality to have. And part of that is holding the running game with good pickoff moves and knowing that you're slowing him down. You got him on his tippy toe. You got him thinking, I'm got to die back. I got to die back. He's going to pick me, rather than I'm off to the races. I'm off to the races. It's time to go. Ready, set. Oh, shoot. I got to think left as much as I got to think right. So if you're a runner facing a pitcher, you want that runner thinking it's just as much about having to get back to the base as thinking about, I'm all green light, baby. I'm all green light. I'm going right. It's a right turn only, right turn only. You want him thinking left turn also. So that's part of using the pickoff. I do not like pitchers, and I'm going to finish up this. I've given you a lot of good stuff here, and I don't want to overload you, but these are the big needle movers right here, the big needle movers. I do not like pitchers doing a move to first base, a pickoff move to first base. That is not their best move. I don't like these. That's his B move. I want to see the best move every time. In fact, before a game, starting pitchers should work on their pickoff moves before the game starts. I'm throwing out another nugget. This is something that I don't see done very much, and for years I didn't see it at all. The starting pitcher, the relief pitchers should be going through every single pickoff move that they have. Typically, it's their A move to first base, their best move to first base. Lefties might have 2 moves to first base, but righties, it's 1 move to first. Second base, you have 2 moves. Sometimes you have that inside move. I know they're looking at not allowing certain moves, and as baseball moves forward, the third to first move, things like that. But whatever your league allows, I think there's about 4 to 5 to 6 moves per pitcher, lefty or righty, that they should be doing full speed before the game starts. So they don't need to do this like shuffle and lob throw to first base to kind of get their time. No. I know pitchers do that because they think they're tricking the runner, but that's been used so much. Every first base coach and most every runner knows if you throw something over that doesn't look very good, they know that's not your best move, so they're not too concerned about it. I don't think over the years and over your career and over the season and even over a game, you're going to get many outs by doing that B move or that C move and then coming back to the A move. Stick with the A move. I think it causes more problems for pitchers than it does get outs. I think it throws off the timing. I think you want to get the timing. It goes back to the power slide step. Simplify, and just be elite at that one move. Be elite, and timing needs to be elite. The tempo, elite and perfect at having that one move, whether it's a power slide step, a pick off the first, a pick off the second, and things like that. Now at second base, I'm a big fan of having shortstops and second basemen working that runner and setting, hey, if he's past this line, we need to pick off. And maybe you show him on the field where, hey, this is an extended lead. We're picking off. We're going. I also don't think shortstops and second basemen should be moving back to their defensive positions too early. In fact, I think that you have your non-pull side. So the pull side defender should have worried more about range and coverage on ground balls, whether that's second baseman for lefties or shortstops for right-handed hitters. I think your non-pull side should be your default guy that holds the runner at second, but that can definitely switch depending on the hitter. Some hitters are predominantly going the other way, especially in Little League or Pony League or youth travel ball and even high school. That is something that happens a lot where you have hitters that go the other way more often than you would just switch it over. But your default setting for your defense should be shortstops take the bag when it's a left-handed hitter up, and second baseman's cover and hold the runner at second when it's a right-handed hitter up. And then you can switch from there there depending on the scouting report and depending on what the hitter's tendencies are. That would even be my default thing. Another thing, third baseman should never be holding the runner at third, but I'm a big fan of pickoffs to third base. Big fan. This is my last thing I'm going to hit here. Man, I'm feeling good about this, giving this stuff to you. So there's some things here that are definitely going to help. Third basemen should not be holding the runner, but definitely there should be more pickoffs to third base. You're not necessarily going to get the out, but again, you're thinking, you want that runner thinking, I got to get back. I got to keep my lead short at third base. So when the ball does get hit to your infielders, when the ball does get hit to your pitcher, when it does get put into play, they are not only on autopilot, go home, green light, I'm going home to score. They're getting a worse jump, hopefully, and that gives you more time. If that's a runner that, you've told your defense, hey, the play's at home, we're going to get the runner at home, you're giving your catcher more time to make that tag, your infielders more time to get the throw to the catcher. So I think it's important that we pick the third base. Right-handed pitchers can perfect this move and do pickoffs. You have to get your third baseman timing. I used to do it where I would let my third baseman know they were required to look over. Anytime a runner was at third base, my third baseman had to look to the dugout, and I had a sign for that. And they knew it was either a fake sign. I would go through a quick set of signs. They knew the pick was on or it wasn't. And we picked a lot. We like to keep those runners close. All right, so there are a lot of little tricks you can do and things to hold runners and stop the first and third game, and a lot of little things that work here and there a little bit. But I think overall, what we talked about today covers 97% of it. And at the end of the day, get your pitchers better, get your bullpens a higher quality, get your catchers better at framing and getting the hitter out, working with the pitcher, and that will keep the runners off the bases, and thus you have to worry about fewer runners. All right, go back and listen to this part again. I think this episode is definitely worth a second listen, only because if you're not taking notes the first time, what we talked about here is definitely gonna help your team. There are certain parts to it. There's multiple parts to it. Take this out to the field. You guys, I got excited on this one. I just really tried to share it. I got away from my 30-minute, mark that I try to keep it around, because I feel like, having listened to so many podcasts over the years, I like that 30-minute mark. I feel like that's a good amount to take out, use right away. I try to put out 30 minutes a week. I just went a lot longer than that, but I got excited about this, trying to help you, and share with me what you're getting out of this. Coach Bo, it's B-O as in Coach Bo, like Bo Jackson, not the French spelling. Coach Bo at 8020baseball.com. Reach out to me, share with me, ask your questions, tell me what you're getting, tell me what's working the best for you. You guys, love having you listening. I'm gonna let you go now, or I guess I'm not really letting you go. You can leave anytime, but I'm gonna close it up now. You can go on with your day. Go back and listen to this again. I promise you, it's gonna help out there. It's gonna save. Again, we got away from the team culture part of it and that sort of thing, which to me is the biggest thing. But when we got to get out there, we got to have strategies to help get outs, to help slow down the other team on the field, and to help get our hitters and our offense better. And this was definitely one of those episodes where we covered a lot about getting our offense better from a batting practice perspective, but also getting our team better at slowing down the other team's running game. All right, that's it. You guys take care of yourself, take care of your families, and I'll see you on the flip side, episode 36. Take care.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.